We are Project 3 and welcome to our podcast. Join us as we dive into the complexities of environmental sustainability and explore the role we can all play in creating a more equitable and sustainable world. Starting with your host, Kiara.
For today's episode, we'll talk about the importance of media law and ethics in media industry. Media plays a vital role in informing people about their surroundings, the truth, and the situations they reside in. Media law is not a term for a uniform and integrated body of law like the law of contract or the law of crimes. It is a mix of a variety of laws and ethics that are considered most important for a working journalist and media industry. When the term media law is used, the focus is on the law itself. It examines the limits within which the media organizations and journalists operate. Hence, this type of emphasis diverts the focus on fields like freedom of speech, defamation, confidentiality, privacy, censorship, contempt, and freedom or access to information. Ethics as a concept has been introduced by the Greeks, who successfully managed to divide the philosophical world into three basic parts: aesthetics, epistemology, and ethics. Aesthetics is to how an individual sees the beautiful and his or her analysis of beauty without relying on subjective evaluations. Epistemology is the study of knowing. It debates about what constitutes learning and what is known to human mind. And ethics is the study of what is good, both for the individual and the society. This was because the Greeks were concerned with individual virtues of courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, as well as the societal virtues such as freedom. 2,000 years later, ethics has become to mean learning to make rational choices between what is good and bad, what is morally justifiable action and what is not. Ethics also means distinguishing among choices, all of which may be morally justifiable, but some more than others. Rationality is the key word here, for the Greeks believed, and modern philosophers affirm, that people should be able to explain their ethical decision to others. The ability to explain ethical choices is an important one for journalists. Imagine, if there were no laws and ethics in the world, what had happened? Can civilization and democracy, even life, is possible without codes, laws, or ethics? Certainly not. Right to know, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and freedom of the press are conditional. If laws and ethics are for everyone, then why not for journalists and media? Every constitution of the world guarantees freedom of press and freedom of speech, but conditionally. For many years now, globally, the media has assumed and reinforced its important role as a legitimate reflection of public interest and opinion. The power and apparent influence of the media was long realized. However, the law is a constantly changing institution. The laws in the area of media law change more rapidly than the laws in other areas. It is imperative that practitioners in any field have a sound working knowledge of the legal and ethical considerations that apply to their occupation. This is especially true with media organizations and journalists who claim to be providing and disseminating information and commentary for the public good and in the interest of the public. The purpose, functions, and importance of media law and ethics may be summarized as follows. Media law regulates behavior. In particular, it ensures the protection of freedom of expression and discourages harmful speech. It does so by providing a legal framework for the protection of the right to freedom of expression. It provides a mechanism for settling disputes by ensuring equality and elimination for discrimination of any kind. so that access to remedies is not hindered. It also fosters an environment in which the mass media can determine its own role by adhering to high standards of information provision that meet recognized professional and ethical standards. That's all for this episode. Join us in the next one as we continue to talk about the importance of media law and ethics in the media industry. Media law ensures the right to be heard and the right to speak, and protects individual rights from unfair governmental action. Another purpose and importance of media law and ethics is social reasoning. Media organizations, media persons, or journalists do have ethical implications to a lesser or greater extent. This is because whatever is said, written, or even for that matter been neglected has influence on people. The influence can be good or bad. Because the media has enormous influence, it is vital for media organizations to act in a responsible and accountable way. When media acts irresponsibly, several things happen. For example, unnecessary harm is done to people, the media loses credibility, it weakens the media's vital role as watchdogs, and the well being of democracy suffers. There are two fundamental characteristics of human behavior: harm and mutual aid. Ethics and moral behavior are important because of people's universal aversion to harm, either physical or psychological. Harm is the experience of pain, suffering, or deprivation against our will that results from the willful or neglect act of another person. From the moral point of view, harm is wrongful injury as a result of human action and should be seen as an aspect of evil. While most, if not all, humans would want to be harmed, it is true that most human beings inflict harm from time to time to others. The coexistent realities, the universal human aversion to harm and the universal tendency to inflict harm, are the conditions that call ethical practice in the media necessary. Anyone can write or express their views in any way they want. This is a human right. However, professional communication exists among a group of people who are deemed and recognized so. Therefore, if journalism is going to be recognized as a profession in the media industry, then it must have ethical standards. Professional training that enables a prospective practitioner or professional to acquire a body of theoretical knowledge, a set of skills, cultivate the necessary qualities, and finally go through a rigorous process of practical experience or internship before graduation. This is what sets a professional communicator from ordinary communicator. The media can also be a source of conflict through the harm they cause to society. When media practitioners do their work unprofessionally, their work can be potentially harmful to individuals, organizations, societies, and the world at large. Harmful media products can incite hatred and violent conflicts, damage people's and organizations' reputation, business, and disrupt social and economic life in general. This is why, although not only for this reason, governments come up with different legislation to protect the public from harmful effects of irresponsible media. There are many laws, such as those against libel, defamation, and etc. In short, it helps the media industry and the journalists to learn ways to avoid being sued for what is written or disseminated, learning to be more accurate about matters, and to gain an understanding and respect for constitutional guarantees and the protections they provide. Pakistan media ethics is unique as it illustrates how Islam tends to reshape the values and ethics of society. The authoritarian regime of Field Marshal Ayub Khan promulgated the Restrictive Press and Publication Ordinance in 1963. It was replaced by a mild regulatory law, the Registration of Press and Publication Ordinance of 1988, as a result of federal Shariat court judgment on a petition, which entailed examination of the already existing ordinance of 1963. Article 19 of the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, besides guaranteeing to the citizens freedom of speech and expression, also guarantees freedom of the press, subject to reasonable restrictions imposed by law in the interest of glory of Islam, of the integrity, security, and defense of Pakistan, or any part thereof, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency, or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, defamation, or incitement of any offense. The Newspaper Editors' Council of Pakistan was formed on May 22, 1993. Its aim and object includes safeguarding the freedom of the press and working freely for healthy growth of journalism in the country. The Council believes that duty of editors or journalists is to serve the truth. It is also believed that the agencies of mass communication are carriers of public discussions and information. The Press Council of Pakistan Ordinance 2002 was issued by the then President Pervez Musharraf, providing the establishment of 19 members council with mandate to implement 17 points ethical code of practice for the press. Majority of these points relate to the moral and ethical values of journalistic profession. The Council is empowered to constitute as many inquiries commissions as may be necessary for the purpose of deciding complaints within a stipulated time period. Pakistan native independent broadcast sector is only 5 years old. Until mid-2002, the country's electronic media was controlled heavily by the state. The military government of Pervez Musharraf promulgated PEMRA or PEMRA Ordinance 2002. Its main objective was to open up broadcast sector for private ownership. It was promulgated for regulating the establishment and operation of all the broadcasters and cable television stations in Pakistan established for the purpose. The Freedom of Information Ordinance, introduced in 2002, contains some positive features acknowledging citizens' right to know. However, the 21st day time frame for the release of information, inclusion of courts and tribunals, among those require disclosing information mar its true spirit. Large amounts of information are also not subject to disclosure under the ordinance, largely undermining the public's right to know. Instead of applying to all records held by public bodies, the ordinance provides a restrictive list of public records subject to disclosure. There may have been growing demands by the members of the press to amend the ordinance and pass the legislation that obliges the government to provide access to all forms of information, except those which are specifically restricted. There have been some developments in respecting the right to freedom of opinion and expression in South Asia, but the progress is severely restricted by law, which give the state the right to protect information and discourage open disclosure on religious issues. That's all for today. Join us in the next episode as we continue the importance of media law and ethics in media industry.